The gut-brain connection, the question is a literal question. Is it all in your head? Is it all in your brain? Is it all just neurotransmitters? Is it all just serotonin? The reality is it's not.
I want to do something unusual today, Dr. B. I want to start with actually the story you were telling me right before we hit the record button about your time during your fellowship. I really wasn't expecting that. Let's start there.
Yeah, gosh, it was a crazy time, Chuck. I mean, on paper, you would think everything was going so well for me. I was the top of my class at Northwestern, chief medical resident, got my first choice for fellowship. I literally had a grant from the NIH. I was crushing every goal I set. And yet I was miserable. And I would literally come home from work and I would just lie on the couch under a blanket in a dark room. And honestly, I just wanted people to leave me alone. And it felt like the world was coming at me in shades of blue and gray.
I mean, and that's the thing. It's like you have all that going for you, but you're a doctor while this is happening. Let's not lose sight of that.
Yeah, and this is just one aspect of everything that was happening. I've talked about this publicly before. I was 50 pounds overweight. I was bloated, completely exhausted. My blood pressure and my cholesterol were going the wrong way. And, you know, I didn't honestly know where to start to fix these issues. I was looking for solutions.
All right, Dr. B, before we go any further with the show, I got 5 fast-hitting questions for you. Are you ready?
Let's go.
All right, true or false? Your mood is all in your head.
False.
Everyone says trust your gut about anxiety, but is that really where the science is the strongest?
Actually not.
And can changing what you eat really move something as serious as depression?
Yes.
And did your gut make you sad, or did being sad change your gut?
Ooh, good one. I would say both.
And finally, if somebody's in a dark room tonight, what is the first thing you'd tell them to do?
I would say break out of that dark room, get some morning sunlight, and go and find yourself a plate of plants, ideally with a friend.
And stick with us. Lots more tips, 7 of them, as a matter of fact, coming your way. Things that you can actually do right now to improve your mood. All right, Dr. B, let's go back to that couch you were talking about a few years earlier when you were a fellowship. You had everything going for you. Take me back to that couch. What was actually going on with you, man? Don't spare any details.
Well, first of all, this is like we're literally talking about the worst time of my life, honestly. So I sort of see it looking backwards as I was in a dark place. In some weird way, Chuck, I'm actually grateful that this happened because it helped me to become the person that I am today. Right? Like I don't know if I become this person without going through those challenges.
Yeah.
But there I was, and you know, again, we sort of set this up in the intro, but on paper, you would think everything was perfect. And in real life, and you would have to know me really well, like beyond the hospital. You would have to be in my personal spaces. If you knew me really well, you would know I was struggling. Right? So performance at work and in the hospital was not matching how I was feeling on the inside. And, you know, despite all these accomplishments, I had such tremendously low self-esteem. So, you know, so we've sort of talked about like some of the health related issues that I had, and I felt depressed. And the world, I viewed it through a different lens than what I see today. And it's hard to describe unless you've been through that. But I think for a lot of people who may be listening to this, you may get what I'm talking about if you've experienced that in your own life. And I think you got to zoom out for a moment. And like I always ask the question, no matter what the outcome is in health, hey, how did we get here? What's the root of the issue? And when I zoom out and I look at this, I'm like, in retrospect, gosh, isn't it obvious? The hospital owned me, right? I'd go to work when it was dark. The day the sun would come up, it would go down. I was still in the hospital that whole time. And I would come home when it was dark, right? There was no time for exercise. There was no time for me to cook my own food. And the little time that I did have where I wasn't just grinding it out in the hospital, I was like, hey, look, I'm going to do my laundry and I'm going to go out to the bar with my friends. Right? Like, that's basically where I was at. Like, hey, I've earned the right.
You were in your 20s at that point still, right? Like late 20s, maybe?
I was like late 20s into early 30s, this period
Yeah.
of time in my life, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, it's a very different place than where I am today,
Certainly.
right? Yeah. But at the same time, I'm not actually condoning that. Like, if I could go back and like sit down with that guy and talk to him, I would give him a pep talk, because this like totally bizarre circadian rhythm, you know, taking an inflammatory lifestyle dominated by work, tons of fast food, because frankly, like, it was easy, it was cheap, it tasted good, it made total sense to me. It like checks all the boxes of what I wanted in that moment. And then to spend what little free time that you have on something that actually is causing harm to your body, which is, you know, drinking alcohol with friends. Of course I ended up where I did.
Yeah. Yeah. No surprise there. And it's also not lost on me that you were very high functioning professionally, but you had this low self-esteem away from work. And just anecdotally, I kind of felt the same way. It's like, for me, I never let my weight dictate how successful I was going to be in my career. I kind of leaned into it, especially earlier in my career when I was on big 100.3, but my self-esteem was still like garbage. It was lower than low. It was the gum beneath your shoe. And it just got me to think, like, you know, I'm not saying it would solve the world's problems, but I think that if we all just took better care of ourselves, like, a lot of the conflict that we have in our day-to-day life would kind of work itself out, maybe because there's more confidence. But I know that there's a ton of science behind this. That's just my opinion. I can't speak for anybody else, but I would love to know about the wiring in the brain and what makes this connection so daggone powerful.
Yeah. Well, I think let's transition into talking about that, which is the gut-brain connection. And, you know, one of the rapid fires that you asked me was it all in your head? And sometimes we hear that and we're like, hey, are you insulting this person? No, like, literally, I think the question is a literal question. Is it all in your head? Is it all in your brain? Is it all just neurotransmitters? Is it all just serotonin?
Mm.
And the reality is it's not. And we have learned that the body doesn't have the boundaries the way that we think about it. I think the way that we process information is to sort of separate out into different spaces, and sort of with the belief or assumption that those different spaces are in fact distinct and separate within the body.
Yeah.
And yet that's not the way this works. And the gut is constantly talking to the brain.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, one of the main communication lines is the vagus nerve, if I'm not mistaken. And we have seen a ton online recently about vagus nerve stimulation. They have all of these given. I can't open up Instagram without, you know, scrolling down one or two times. It's another, you know, device to calm the vagus nerve. Like, how big of a role does the vagus nerve play? Because it's certainly having a moment right now.
Okay. The vagus nerve is, like, to me, the centerpiece of the conversation on brain gut, right? It's not the only thing, but to me, it's the most powerful thing. We're talking about, and when we say the vagus nerve, it's actually technically a pair of nerves, but even myself, I call it the vagus nerve because we're sort of talking about the entire apparatus.
Yeah.
All right. It's a pair of nerves, it's two nerves, and it connects directly to your brain. So we call these cranial nerves. And basically the most important nerves in your body, your brain has, like, basically a direct connection to. Now, most of them are up here connected to parts of your head that, like, for example, allow you to see, allow you to taste, allow you to feel on your face, things like this. This is the one nerve that leaves your skull through a special channel, travels down your neck, through your chest, and even all the way down into your abdomen, and it's feeling and sensing, and it's connected to a network, Chuck. This is staggering, of 500 million nerves. All right, so there's 500 million nerves in your gut that as you and I sit here and we talk to one another, they're feeling, they're sensing, they're collecting information, and guess where they send it? Through the vagus nerve.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Up to the brain.
Up to the brain.
Yeah.
So, and if we're asking the question, okay, well, like, is this a two-way street? Is the brain talking to the gut? Is the gut talking to the brain? How does that all work? They're talking to each other. It is a two-way street, but it's pretty lopsided. So it's the gut is like very talkative. All right. Mm-hmm. And the brain is mostly listening. So 80% of the information that gets carried through the vagus nerve is going from the gut up to the brain for your brain to process. And then 20% of the information is going from your brain down to your gut.
I feel like in a roundabout way, you've just described my marriage somewhat. You know, somebody talks a lot, the other person listens, and I'm just going to leave it right there, buddy.
Well, we all have relationships in our life that are like this, where it's like one side is dominating the conversation. And I'm glad that you didn't call me out on it, Chuck, because I was a little bit worried that you're going to be like, oh, well, Will, I know how that feels.
Nope. Just going to throw my wife under the bus this go around. But that's all right. Hi, Jules. I love you. Oh, man. Get me out of this, man. So we got the vagus nerve. There's a lot of chatter going on.
Yeah. Well, and so the vagus nerve is interesting. Let's just stick with it for a brief little moment before we move on from it. To say that there are medical devices that exist that you were referring to a moment ago that are used to actually stimulate the vagus nerve. Okay. Now, this is a medical device. Every medical device has downsides. Every medical device has risks, right? But we do know that vagus nerve stimulation has been shown to treat refractory major depression. Okay, so basically what that says right there by itself is that this is, if you were to just take this specific part and nothing else, and there is other stuff, we'll talk about it. If you take this one specific part and you activate it, it can improve a person's mood. All right. But you don't need a medical device to activate your vagus nerve. There's many ways to activate your vagus nerve. And what we describe this as is basically getting into a parasympathetic state, which is like a relaxed rest and recovery mode. The easiest way to do this is through your breath. That is the easiest way to activate your vagus nerve. Anyway, moving on from the vagus nerve, we can talk more about some of those strategies later, but moving on from the vagus nerve, we must also acknowledge like the sort of headline that people hear on the internet like 20 times a day, which is 95% of serotonin gets produced in the gut. Have you heard that, Chuck?
Many times, sir. Many, many times. By you, your colleagues, and everybody in between.
Yeah. So we love to drop that because it's like a total shocking thing, right? You hear serotonin, you expect it's all in your brain. We take medications to treat depression that increase brain serotonin. So what the heck? 95% of serotonin is produced in the gut. Yes, this is true. Now that serotonin does not cross into the brain, but there's immediate precursors to serotonin, like something called 5-HTP, 5-hydroxytryptophan, that does cross into the brain and can become a precursor to brain serotonin. We also have dopamine, which is the reward hormone, 50% of dopamine produced in the gut. We have GABA, which is another one that affects our brain chemistry, once again, produced in the gut and actually thought to cross the blood-brain barrier. So, what we have here is this dynamic relationship where the gut is able to produce neurotransmitters, precursors to neurotransmitters. The gut is able to signal through the vagus nerve. And then last but not least, my favorite topic, the gut is able to send short-chain fatty acids into the bloodstream. And those short-chain fatty acids do have an impact on the blood-brain barrier and cross into the brain to affect inflammation in the brain.
Brother, I'm sitting here listening to you, and I'm just thinking about how magnificently complicated human machinery is. Like, that is one complex freaking system. And then, like, just the sheer volume of stuff that's being produced in your gut, whether it's serotonin or dopamine or anything, microbes, like, there is just so friggin' much going on in your belly. Like, it's unfreaking believable. And then the way that it's able to literally just like transmit itself all over the body, it blows my mind.
Yeah,
I would use fancy technical terms if I went to medical school, but I'm just going to use lay terms and say, man, I'm friggin' blown away, brother.
yeah, no, I appreciate that, Chuck. I like the way that you talk about these things. So let's
Thank you,
keep it
sir.
that way. I don't want
Thank you.
I don't want you to be as nerdy as
Don't
me.
get too smart. Don't get too smart.
This
No,
is-
we need to keep you just the right level of stupid.
No,
Right.
no. It's fun. It's fun. It's fun. It's wholesome, and you're a great guy. All right, but let's go back real quick to the butyrate thing, and even the serotonin thing, and these gut neurotransmitters. The microbes play a role in this.
Yeah.
Right. And so what we're saying is that the microbes play a role in like these signals that are ultimately being sent up to the brain. And so does it come as a surprise that the microbiome is different in a person with major depression? The answer is no. But what we have seen is starting to fill in the pieces of the puzzle of explaining how this story is more than just the brain. Because what we've learned in recent years, Chuck, and they have some unique ways that they measure this, is that the brain within the context of major depression has inflammation. So we call this neuroinflammation. And that inflammation is contributing to the manifestation of depression, including like alterations of these brain neurotransmitters like serotonin. So inflammation is contributing to that.
Can we take a second and talk about that before we move on? So when you're talking about brain inflammation, I can envision somebody saying, well, is he talking about physical swelling here, or is this another form of inflammation?
That's a little bit different. When we talk about inflammation in the body, there's the acute inflammation. That's the response to, for example, bodily injury, which is what you're describing with physical swelling. Right. And that's like a high impact, high output inflammation that leads to swelling, redness, warmth, tenderness. Right. And that's our body trying to basically recover from that injury.
Yeah.
What we're talking about here is something much more subtle. Chronic, low grade inflammation. And so it's more of a smoldering version. It's not the blazing fire that you can see from 100 yards away. This is hey, I'm not really sure if there's a fire in there. And then you get closer and you're like, oh, dang, there's some really hot coals down there.
Right on.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? My marshmallow will burn if I get too close to that.
I
Right?
want to do that. Not a burned marshmallow guy, man.
Yeah. Well, we're running with the analogy here, Chuck. So
Oh, all right.
anyway, so the point being, like, there is this smoldering sort of inflammation that exists there, and that inflammation that exists in the brain, it contributes to fatigue, it contributes to brain fog, and it contributes to alterations in brain neurotransmitters that ultimately we're trying to address through medications that like increase brain serotonin levels or other neurotransmitters. But what has been missing from my perspective is the acknowledgement that, hey, there's inflammation there. Right? And this becomes an important story because if we say that mood is not just your brain, if we say that mood involves the gut too, well, let's then turn our attention over to the gut. And here's what you're going to see. A loss of diversity within the gut microbiome. Less good guys. There's some specific ones, by the way, like Coprococcus and Fecal bacterium, and more of the sort of inflammatory microbes. So we see an inflammatory pattern within the gut microbiome. And here's a key piece, Chuck. Less butyrate producers. So the butyrate, that is, people have heard me say this, the most anti-inflammatory molecule that I've ever come across, and it's not just anti-inflammatory in the gut, it's anti-inflammatory in your brain too. When we zoom in on the gut, what we see is that the gut is unwell, struggling, and not capable of producing the butyrate that our body needs. And here we end up with this, manifestation.
Well, short of making diet and lifestyle changes, have these antidepressants been shown to affect the microbiome in any way?
Yes, they have. And actually in many of the cases with beneficial effect, Chuck. And it leads us into a complex conversation of, okay, but time out, Dr. B. The skeptic in the room would say the reason why the microbiome is not well is because the person is depressed, right? They're not eating, or when they are eating, they're eating junk food, they're not exercising, and you sort of run down that thread. And I agree with that. But there's clearly more to the story than just that. And here's how we know. They've done fecal transplant studies. And in fecal transplant studies, where they actually take a human who is depressed and they transfer it into a mouse, the mouse starts behaving depressed. So the behavior of the mouse will match the behavior of the human by transferring the microbiome of the human into the mouse. All right. Crazy, right?
That's so wild. Yeah.
All right. Let me, look, humans, we're complicated. Like we can do these fecal transplant studies in mice and you see effects real quick because it's a mouse. It's a much more simpler system. It's not as easy to do these things in humans, but here's what we do have in humans. We have human studies where they do a fecal transplant for irritable bowel syndrome.
Yeah.
Now, we all know that irritable bowel syndrome is often co-associated with changes in mood, including depression. And they actually found in this IBS study that there were improvements in mood in the people who also had improvements in their gut. So in other words, gut symptoms got better and so did mood symptoms through a fecal transplant.
Golly. I mean, that's just so amazing. I mean, from just a mechanistic standpoint, the fact that, we can do a fecal transplant and it can get absorbed into the body, not orally, blows my mind. Again, I'm a simple-minded kind of guy. Number two, I'm also wondering about, who are the people that gave up these samples, right? Are these the happiest sons of guns walking the face of the earth? Like, I'm talking like Dawn Musalem type of happiness, right? Like previously unknown to man. Like that, when I think about happiness, I think about Dr. Dawn. I've never seen anybody who's happier than her. That's the kind of dung that I want. I love you, Dawn. Thank you for being so happy. I'm just letting you know, I think that much of you.
Yeah, that's true.
And as I've dug that grave, you just go right ahead, buddy, and you dig me out, buddy, please.
No, I understand because I would be accepting. There's some research that suggests that that microbiome can impact athletic performance. They've shown this in mice. So Michael Jordan, if you're out there, I'm accepting samples for my.
Everybody wants a signed rookie card. You want his waist.
Yeah. We'll leave it at that.
Drop the 3 on the back
don't
of
hire
the jersey.
me as your plumber.
Want the 2. I just want the 2 on the jersey, not the 3.
If I randomly show up at your house and pretend to be a plumber and claim that I need to clean things and fix things for you, send me away. I don't think you want me in there.
Oh my God. All right. Let me ask you a question, man. Let me get scientific here. Depleted bugs in depressed people. I'm going to circle this back to my own experience. When I was diagnosed with clinical depression in the 6th grade. I don't know if you know that. My diet was already well off the rails at this point, was given Prozac. That was the antidepressant of the day. And given that, but again, like I'm wondering, like, was it the bugs that caused the depression or did the depression change the bugs? Like, has science been able to definitively prove that once and for all?
Well, I think let's what you're asking me is to bring clarity to this question after what I just said about these fecal transplants.
Yeah.
Right? Like, am I arguing that the gut is 100% responsible for what's happening in the brain or what's happening in terms of mood? No, I am not. No. Here's my argument. My argument is that depression is not simply a neurotransmitter imbalance.
Yeah.
That there's a bigger story there. So when we treat it as, I'm not against the medications. Actually, I'm so happy that these medications exist because there are many people who really need them.
Sure.
And I've seen them do life-changing things for those people.
Yeah.
But when we treat it like this is just a neurotransmitter imbalance, we're losing sight of what really got us into this place and what really landed us here in the first place, and the bigger story. The bigger story includes neuroinflammation. The bigger story includes the ways in which the gut is communicating to the brain. The bigger story includes inputs to the gut, such as diet and lifestyle and other factors that do impact the microbiome, that do impact short-chain fatty acid production, that do impact the vagus nerve.
All right, so let me just like really dial this down as clearly as I can. So like when I was going to Taco Bell on my famous 10,000 calorie a day diet, every time I would eat there, right, that was like pouring a little bit of gas on that fire that was still, smoldering, right? It wasn't neuroinflammation. I didn't have flames shooting out of my ears, but there was definitely some fire smoldering in there. And every time I would stop by the drive-thru or, eat 6 taquitos from 7-Eleven or go to Boston Market and eat the entire family meal, like all of that was just lighting up my brain in a way that I wasn't really expecting or certainly bargaining for.
Yeah, well, so a preview, because we're moving into, you promised our audience that I would give actionable tips.
Yeah.
So let me drop a quick little preview of what's coming. Ultra-processed foods, and Taco Bell qualifies because, dude, the beans at Taco Bell, they're not just beans. Like there's more going on there. And so ultra-processed foods have been associated with changes in mood, along with many other health-related issues. And so there's no doubt, Chuck, that the choices that we make with our diet do impact our mood. Because on one side, we have what I just said, that ultra-processed foods are contributors to depressed mood. Mm. And then we have the opposite side, which was studied by Professor Felice Jacka at the Food and Mood Center at Deakin University in Australia. I'm a huge fan, by the way.
Deakin.
Yeah. And them and also Felice Jacka. But like the Food and Mood Center, like this is such my jam that we have a place in the world that is like really prioritizing this study to say, hey, we want to know what the impact of food is on our mood. And they did a study called the SMILES trial.
Oh, these are the guys behind the SMILES trial. Okay.
This is the SMILES trial. So,
good deal.
And they did a randomized control trial, and half the people were put on a plant predominant Mediterranean diet, and the other half the people were basically like given like support and encouragement, but no dietary change. Okay. And basically what they found in this study was the rates of remission of the depression were 4 times higher for the people who had the dietary intervention.
Wow.
So, and the rates were like what you would see on par with medication.
That's crazy. Well, let me ask you this. I mean, I know right now we're talking about ultra processed stuff, but to tie it back to Taco Bell, one of the conversations you and I have had multiple times, whether it's on the Gut Insiders or the Exam Room, is about like eating a wide variety of foods as well, right? Diversity is one of your key words. When I would go to Taco Bell, I would get a bunch of different things, right? I wasn't just eating tacos, for goodness sakes. I was getting quesadillas and burritos, multiple kinds of burritos and nachos and the empanada too. So would that qualify as diversity in this case? And does diversity even matter when we're talking about combating depression?
No, that does not qualify as diversity.
Oh,
Hey, look, I'm not bashing Taco Bell. All right. So I don't want you to hear me the wrong way, because let's talk about like parallel stories, but occurring at different times or different stages. You know, there you are having your Taco Bell, experiencing depressed mood, and there I was basically like getting off call, having worked a 30-hour shift, and then like basically popping by Taco Bell, hitting the drive-through, and carrying home $25 worth of food. By the way, $25 in like, you know, 2010 money, 28 money, right?
Figure out inflation, my friend.
Yeah, it went a lot further back then for those who are wondering, right? Like that would be like buying $40 worth of stuff right now.
Yep.
Right. And taking that home, smashing it, not really chewing, basically just opening my mouth and swallowing, and then passing out and waking up the next day and going back to work. That was my life.
Yep.
Right. So of course I ended up sick.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So based upon what we know today. So what you're getting at though is the question of diversity. And I think this kind of leads us into, Chuck, if we could, the list of actionable tips of what we can actually do.
Let's get into it, man.
Okay.
You promised, I believe, 7 of them?
Yep. Let's make this number 1.
What you got?
Eat for diversity.
Here we go.
All right. Because we have this, the Food and Mood Center doing the SMILES trial showing us that a plant-based Mediterranean diet is actually highly effective in terms of supporting mood. Okay, now let's talk about what's happening in the middle, which is your gut. Because any food that you put into your mouth, particularly plant-based foods, they are impacting your gut. And what we know is that people who suffer with depression, there's a loss of gut diversity and there's a loss of the butyrate producers. So what's the remedy for that? Well, we know from the American Gut Project, you and I have talked about this so many times through the years, that the number one predictor of a more diverse microbiome is the diversity of plants in your diet. So in essence, what I'm getting at here is that the SMILES trial, in a way, was validating the concept of plant-based diversity. I'm not saying that that was the primary focus of the trial. They were doing a plant-predominant Mediterranean diet. What I'm saying is by pushing people into a plant-predominant Mediterranean diet, they're orienting them towards more plants. And this is fulfilling the prophecy of the American Gut Project, which is that the diversity of plants in your diet translates into diversity within your microbiome. Here we see it at play, improving mood.
I love it. Fulfilled the prophecy. Well done, sir. Well done.
This is like we're going back to 2017, which feels like a very, very, very long time ago in research years in terms of microbiome research, right? So it kind of feels like, oh, dang, like they're ahead of their time, like predicting.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That this is important. And so this is the actionable tip number 1. Aim for 30 plants a week.
I love that. Before we move on to number 2, I just love the fact that research is moving at such a warp speed that something as recent as, what did you say, 2017?
It was 2017 when they first discussed it at a meeting, and it was 2018 when the publication came out.
Yeah. So we're not even a decade later, and boom, here we are. I just feel like it's accelerating. I love it. Number 2, I want to make a request that we talk a little bit more about the ultra processed stuff here, because we already talked about it. So let's just kind of put the bow on it, if you will.
Yeah, let's do it. So what we know is that ultra processed food carries about a 20% higher risk of depression. Now, depression, we're not talking about like a slightly reduced mood. We're talking about a clinical disorder that is diagnosed, right? So when we say a 20% higher risk of depression, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Because suppressing your mood, reducing your mood, sits out there as this other thing that could be way beyond 20%.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, you know, where do we start? Well, we know particularly that the sugar, the refined sugar, is a big part of the problem. So we have been like sort of bashing on Taco Bell, and the part that we didn't actually bring forward that we need to right now are the sugary drinks.
All right, but see now this is going to be a problem for a lot of people. I think I know people who love soda will drink multiple cans a day, and then you have the coffee crowd. And at Starbucks, I would venture to say that the majority of customers are not ordering black cups of coffee; they're ordering lattes, and they've now got a new s'more drink or their raspberry mango tropical lemonade, like sugar, 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 sugar. And a lot of people think of that. Well, that's just what helps get me through the afternoon. So it could be a big ask for a lot of people, man. How hard was it for you to give up the sugary coffees?
Not so easy. I used to be coffee with like the heaviest of heavy creams,
Yeah.
and either a ton of sugar or three Splendas.
Yeah.
That was my approach. So here's what I found: when you make changes, it takes about 4 weeks for your body and your taste buds to adjust. And then you eventually land in a place where you're like, I'm not really missing it anymore. And I'm not even feeling a desire to go back because I like what I found.
Yeah.
And I think on some level, it's because you feel better.
But I'm guessing, dude, that you are like a coffee connoisseur. I bet that you've got a grinder up in the kitchen. I bet you have a French press up in the kitchen. I bet you got special beans for every day of the week up in the kitchen. I bet you're just like a undercover Juan Valdez up there, man. What's in the kitchen?
Oh, man. I got all kinds. I have a French press, and basically what I do is I collect different types of coffee beans that I'm excited about. So I tend to favor dark roast, but it was interesting. I was out at a plant-based event in Vancouver, and I got some local coffee that was fermented. And it's got kind of a funky flavor. And this is what I'm getting at is like I've gotten to this place where I'm like, I just enjoy exploring the different flavors.
Was this the Cope Luwak? Was this the cat coffee where the cats eat the beans, excrete it out, and then they roast them?
No, you'll have to explain to the crowd what you're referring to because that's...
Well, I literally just said the cats eat the beans. It goes through their system. It comes out the other end. Then they wash the beans. Not well enough ever. I'm not sure that you can. Then they roast the beans, and then they grind the beans, and then you drink the coffee that was once inside of a cat.
Yeah, when I say this is an acquired taste, that's not the kind of taste I'm trying to acquire.
No. So on that coffee note, let's talk about tip. I don't know how you get from cat coffee to tip number 3, but I'm going to put that on your plate, buddy. What is tip number 3?
Yeah, well, so this actually turns out to be quite powerful. So anyone who's listening, who's like, hey, I would love to enhance my mood, let me give you one of the most powerful levers right now, which is exercise. So now here's what's interesting. You can do strength-based training, resistance training. You can do cardiovascular training. In both cases, we have found evidence that they improve mood. In fact, highly comparably. So in a way, the choice is yours, or I would argue, go for both. They both have advantages. There's both things for you to receive from this type of stuff. And what we know from the microbiome research is that people who do resistance training more frequently, it tends to lead to enhancements of gut diversity and more of the short-chain fatty acid producers. So once again, if we see the problem as a loss of diversity and not enough short-chain fatty acid production, I'm giving you the way to mitigate that, and that is through exercise.
All right, let's hurry things up here. Let's move on to step number 4. This is a big one in your world as well that we've been talking about recently. Yeah,
sleep. Sleep is like such a basic thing. But at the same time, we know that sleep is good for the gut, and we also know that sleep is incredibly good for mood. So, and when I say sleep, it's not just the total amount of time. I would make a call to action to try to maintain a consistent bedtime. So when we think about the younger version of me who was like in a dark place, part of the issue is that my sleep schedule was all over the place. Sometimes I was sleeping at 1 in the afternoon. Sometimes I was sleeping at 2 in the morning. Sometimes I was sleeping at normal times like 11 o'clock. So try to create sleep consistency. Try to get at least 7 hours of sleep per night.
At least, is there a big difference that you're aware of between 7 hours, 8 hours, maybe even 9?
Well, the key here is that you don't want to dip below 7 hours. And there is such a thing as too much sleep, but we tend to see too much sleep in people that have other issues going on, right? So most of us are going to fall in the range of 7, 8 hours of sleep. And the key here is that 7 hours of sleep is the 7 total hours of actual sleep. So what that means is if it takes you 20 minutes to fall asleep, or if you get up 3 times to go to the bathroom, that's time that you lose. So you gotta compensate for that. So, basically if you get to about 8 hours in the bed, you're going to be where you need to be.
All right. Give us tip number 5, my friend.
All right. Morning light. It is key in terms of circadian rhythm. And it also is essential in terms of mood. And both of these things are contributors to our mood and reducing our risk for depression. So, and we have several different studies that would support this, Chuck. But like the most basic concept is that we know that there's something called seasonal affective disorder. And the deal is that people are spending too much time indoors in the winter, and they're not actually activating their circadian rhythm with natural light the way that they're supposed to. So now you can use a light box if you want to. 10,000 lux is the number that you're shooting for, but really outdoor light is the best. Outdoor light is always superior, even on a cloudy day.
I'll tell you, there's been a lot of chaos in my house the last week. We don't need to go into that, but I will say that as a result of that, I've had to step up and make sure that, typically my wife is the one who's walking the dog first thing in the morning, but that's fallen on me. I have found naturally over the course of the last week that I've been going to bed earlier, maybe sleeping a little bit more soundly. And I even remembered like what I thought at the time was kind of like a weird or really detailed question about should we be walking with or without our glasses on so that we can get all of that natural light that we need to kind of start setting our circadian rhythm first thing in the morning for going to bed that night. And I was like, this stuff actually works. I was literally thinking about that like a couple of nights ago as I was falling asleep. I was like, oh my God, like Dr. B was right again. Like it was pretty cool, man.
It's very cool. And I have felt the same way. This is why you've heard me say, like, this has become a non-negotiable for me to get outside in the morning. And like literally the benefits you will feel on day one.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you're not sure if you believe in what I'm saying to you, I challenge you to go and give this a crack, get outside for at least minimum of 10 minutes, preferably a little bit longer. All right. First thing in the morning. And you will have more energy, you will have more focus, you will have more cognitive endurance that day, and your body will know what time to fall asleep at night, and you will actually sleep much more deeply. So you will find that it benefits you massively.
I'm going to double down on that and say that, yes, what he just said, yes, that's it. All right, number 6, really easy for a lot of us to do in January, but the other 11 months, hey, we got to do what we got to do. Tip number 6, what you got, sir?
If you're struggling with your mood, I have made the argument in my books that I believe that moving towards less alcohol is the right choice. And this is an example where if you're struggling with your mood, this is one of the most high yield things that you can do. And a big part of this, is that alcohol itself is a depressant. And part of that comes through the gut because it basically negatively affects your gut microbiome, the balance, drives you towards dysbiosis, and creates an inflammatory pattern. And once again, that inflammatory pattern doesn't just exist in your gut. It can spread throughout your entire body and potentially affect things like your mood.
Yeah. So if you were to couple those late nights at the bar with that lack of sleep during, your time there in your late 20s, early 30s, neither of those things and your diet and the lack of exercise, like none of that was doing you any favors.
It was not. And this is the issue is now as we sit here and we run through this list, hey, like eat more plant-based food. Okay. Wasn't doing that. Avoid ultra processed food. Okay. Like that was a huge part of the problem. Exercise. Okay. I wasn't doing that. Sleep. Okay. Totally all over the place. Avoid alcohol. Okay. Yeah. I wasn't doing that either. Okay. You can see I had some issues, right?
Yeah.
I was a case study.
Yeah. Well, but that's what makes what you're talking about today all the more powerful, because you have been the patient. You've been in their shoes. You know how it feels to have these types of conversations with the doctor and feeling lost. And let's go to the last one. And feeling that way, that alone can be very stressful. And I would imagine that stress is going to be playing a role here as well.
100%. So let's bring it back to the vagus nerve, right? Because we sort of hyped up how important and relevant the vagus nerve is. Well, the best and easiest way to activate your vagus nerve is through the way that you breathe. And I'm going to give you the tip, Chuck. There's a secret hack here, because there's a lot of different ways to do breathing.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you the secret part.
Hack it, baby. Give me the hack.
Okay, here's the key. It's the length of exhale. That's the key. So, regardless of how much time you take to inhale, you want to drag out the exhale. So I often recommend an approach to breathing where you breathe in for 4 seconds and out for 6. And that's just one technique. There's other techniques that you could apply. But the key here is if you can take your breath and slow down the exhale and do it over 6 or 8 seconds, you're going to be activating your vagus nerve, and it happens fast, Chuck. And there's actually research out of Stanford where they did this for 5 minutes a day, slow exhales. All right, they did a technique that I'll share right now called the physiologic sigh, where you do breathing in through your nose. And the way that you do it is you breathe in through your nose, and then you do a second quick hit to fully expand your lungs. So you'll, right? So that second hit is like make sure your lungs are fully expanded. But then the key, once again, is the slow exhale. So making sure that it's like 6 seconds out. And they actually found that was sufficient to improve mood.
That's interesting. I know in my treatment at the Mayo Clinic, breath work was a huge part of it. And they even gave me, a bracelet. It's not this one, but it just says breathe on it as a reminder. They walked us through various breathing techniques, not the rapid inhale or that second rapid inhale like you were demonstrating, but certainly, that in and then slow, long exhale. So for us, it was either like the 4 and the 8, that you were talking about. It could be 4, 6, and for a lot of patients, you have to work up to it. So if you feel like it's really hard to get that big, deep breath initially, they'll work you through that. But it really does. It calms the system. And 5 minutes seem to be about the sweet spot. It's the craziest thing. I mean, especially as a guy who is somewhat skeptic. Like at the end of the day, dude, I'm a skeptical, like macho sports guy, right? So when somebody's like, oh, do this breathing exercise, you'll feel better. I'm like, really? Did it. 5 minutes later, I felt like a new man. I swear to you, man, this is like 100% true. Big believer in this.
No, I believe it. And it seems too good to be true.
Yeah. It's crazy, man.
This entire episode, we've been focusing on mood, right? But really, what I want the listeners to hear is the bigger picture of both the gut and the brain and the way in which they're connected through the vagus nerve. And what we're talking about through this breath technique, that's so simple, it's free. The only cost is literally you creating 5 minutes of time.
Yeah.
Right? So that technique, it activates the vagus nerve, it soothes the brain, it enhances mood. It's also great for the gut, Chuck. So this is how we actually get our gut into a safe rest repair state. That's the parasympathetic nervous system. And right now we're talking about the impacts of this on mood. But you know what? I could pull out the studies that show you that the same thing that you're describing is good for reducing gut symptoms, is good for irritable bowel syndrome, can, believe it or not, treat constipation.
Yeah. They all overlap, man, and it's all good things. I can't think of there being clinical downsides to what it was that we were talking about. I mean, these are all pretty basic, healthy things that everybody would benefit from, no matter where they are right now in their particular health journey. I think that even somebody who is young and healthy and vibrant, I mean, even making simple tweaks can even get them up to another level that they may not even realize is still there.
Yeah. No, it's so, bottom line, we have opportunities for healing that exist that are For people who need medication, I'm so glad that medication exists. Many of the things and techniques that I've mentioned, they're complementary pieces. They've even been studied in combination with medication. So, but just to run through them real quick for everyone to hear it. Number 1, focus on eating more plants, more plant-based diversity. Number 2, cut the ultra-processed food, including the sugary beverages. Number 3, move your body. Both cardiovascular and resistance exercise is great. I would encourage both. Number 4, take care of your sleep. Protect it. Not just enough time, but also trying to maintain consistency of your sleep. Number 5, get up in the morning. Create a morning routine too. Get outside. Get some morning light. I'm telling you, you will feel the difference. Chuck has experienced this himself. Number 6, if alcohol is something that you're consuming, see what happens when you cut back. And number 7, here's this free tool. Takes 5 minutes a day. All you got to do is breathe out slowly, and you will feel the difference.
100%. And don't knock it till you try it. That's all I has to say about number 7. Don't knock it till you man up. Do some breath work, people. Man up. Do some breath work. All right, gut check time. Let's revisit the Fast 5 from the beginning. All of this is in your head?
Clearly not. Gut's involved. More of the body's involved. So the body is not just your brain. There's more going on here.
This is all really just about anxiety.
No, actually, as you've heard us discuss today, the data is stronger for mood and depression than it is for anxiety. So that's why we put our attention there.
Food can help improve depression.
Thank you to the SMILES trial.
Yeah.
Which we know showed benefit.
All right. What came first, the sadness or the gut illness that could cause the sadness? What came first?
Two-way street. They're definitely connected to each other, but I think the fecal transplant data is highly compelling to suggest that the gut is definitely a player here.
All right. And the big takeaway, what's the first thing you would recommend somebody starting with tonight?
I would get back to get outside, get some morning sunlight, and then go grab a plant-predominant lunch with a friend, and that's how you start your journey towards healing.
All right, man. Let's go back to the story you were telling at the beginning of the show, and that year that you spent, or however long it was, where you were just, on call 24/7, owned by the hospital. I know that your head must have been swimming that entire time.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I hate that I had to go through that. It was like the worst time of my life. And yet, in a way, I'm so glad that I did, because it puts me in a position where I can come here today and I can share this story with you, the listeners, who get to hear about not just what I felt, what I experienced, but I think we've thoroughly vetted the why. And the why is important. And those things, those 7 actionable tips that we've run through, those are your levers. Those are your opportunities. Those are the things that you can change, and you can flip the script. And you can change your gut. You can change your brain. You can change your mood.
You can change it every single day. And we got a lot more gut health tips here for you on this YouTube channel. So if you haven't already liked the video and subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and do that. And if you want more real evidence, honest caveats, none of the hype, we're just giving you the straight deal. That's what we do. Go ahead, hop over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is that you get your shows. Look for the Gut Insiders and go ahead and subscribe there, so that wherever your heart desires, you can go ahead and pull up the show. And as I say on the other show, raise your health IQ, man. That's what this is really all about. And so if someone you love has been living in that dark room, send them the show also, before you put your head on the pillow tonight, because it literally can change their mood. It can improve their mood. Take it from 2 guys who have experienced it themselves. It doesn't get much more powerful than that, my friend.
100%. And what we know is when you take care of that gut, it is going to take care of you and so much more than you even realize.
Yes, sir, to that. And we will see you next time right here on the Gut Insiders.